y'all. I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate, and we are Real Estate Elevated. We're bringing you another episode of I'm Moving to North Carolina, Now What? And today we're actually focusing on a really hot topic with folks relocating to the Triangle or trying to pick a better location for them and their family in regards to farming. So we are very fortunate to have the owners of Half a Barn Farm here with us, who are going to kind of talk through some of the rules, the regulations, the things to be aware of, as well as your comfortability and capability in doing what they do. Thank you guys so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having us.
So give us a little backstory. How did Half a Barn Farm come to fruition? Was this an idea that you guys had in the middle of the night and the next day you just enacted it? Or was there something that happened in your life where you felt like this was a need and a niche that you guys could fill?
Well, it's kind of both. So
Okay.
we've been subsistence farming for over a decade. And we actually started back in Maine on 0.28 acres that also had our house on it, right? And we had a large garden, and we had chickens, and um, so it's something that we've been passionate about, food security and what's in our food for a
Mm-hmm.
very, very long time. But earlier this year, we had this idea of potentially starting a business helping other people to enjoy the same type of quality of food that we get to eat and doing for themselves. And I did a little bit of market research, and we immediately dismissed the idea as stupid. We're just like, no one. I was like, I would never hire me. Like, no, like absolutely not. Like this is a dumb thing. We'll starve. Apart from the fact that we grow and raise all of our own food, like we will be homeless, right? So,
Okay.
and then a few months later, we went to a convention where I got to hear one of my personal heroes, Joel Salatin, speak. And I was expecting him to talk about regenerative farming or some sort of new thing that he was doing on the farm. And he gave an hour-long lecture on ethics. And after he gave his talk, we both felt really convicted that we weren't doing anything with this. We're like, well, even if we don't make a bunch of money, there's people out there that need help
Yeah.
learning how to do this. And as it turns out, so far the business is working pretty well, and we're really enjoying helping people to grow and raise their own food. It's very rewarding.
So I know we have like gardening, which obviously is the subsistence kind of stuff, and then we also have animals. So let's talk through just the triangle in general and what type of trends have you guys noticed that people are really interested in? And is there an animal that was very obscure that somebody brought to you and was kind of like, I really want to have peacocks, which may or may not be something that is really needed or something like that. Like if y'all had some weird asks as well.
Most people want gardens. So
Okay.
that's the comfortable place for people to enter into
Yes.
doing for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that are like, they're coming from away, Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
Iowa, or like us in Maine, and they just don't know how to grow stuff here.
Yeah.
So they still think there's only one growing season when
Mm-hmm.
really, if you do it right, you can grow all year round.
Mm-hmm.
So we found that most people want gardens, but it's very quick to get into chickens. As far as obscure stuff, I don't think we've really hit anything too super obscure yet.
Okay.
And if someone did want peacocks, ask the first question would be, why?
Yeah.
Why do you want peacocks? So a lot of people want to get into animals, but don't
Mm-hmm.
really have an understanding of animals need to do something for your farm as
Mm-hmm.
well as feed you, if that's what you're going for. A bored animal is an animal that gets into trouble.
That's a very valid point. I would completely agree with that. So I know that in the real estate world, we get asked about chickens all the time. Like I feel like chickens has been a common thread, especially in the last few years, just with the way things have shifted, people's perspectives have kind of changed in a pretty broad way. And then relocating here to North Carolina, one of the things that we commonly have to debunk is that we're not just one giant farm. We actually do have metros. We do have some regulations you kind of have to fall into. And some things that we really have to dive into is covenants. So is that something that you guys have experienced where clients have come to you and they just say, I don't know what the rules are as far as where I currently live or even how to dive into the research, choosing somewhere else? Like, is that also kind of a topic of conversation?
So we had that happen with a client. We were invited out to her home back in April, and we did a assessment of her goals and the property that she had, and she had some lofty goals. She wanted
Mm,
chickens. She wanted a very large garden. She wanted to produce most of her own food.
yeah.
And we told her that in order to do it there, she would need to dedicate almost her entire backyard to doing that. And her covenants stated that she could have chickens, but all of her neighbors needed to say that it was okay. And one of them
Interesting.
would not say that it was okay, so she decided to up and move. And
Wow.
then she went someplace. She went to Zebulon, and
Zebulon.
Okay.
we went out there and built a gigantic garden for her, and she's got a chicken coop now and all sorts of stuff. And so she's doing exactly what it is that she wants. But she had to move in order to do it.
Yeah. So something that we kind of talked about offhand was just the fact that there are locations with HOAs and covenants, and a lot of those have been created anywhere from like the 1940s to the 1990s, which I know for us millennials feels like yesterday, but it actually was quite some time ago. And so the world has changed a little bit since a lot of these rules were put in place. So it's always an option for you to go to whoever the governing body is and approach the question of should those rules be amended. In the 2000s era, we've actually seen quite a few covenants get amended to allow things the original ones just didn't outline for various reasons. Also, on the real estate side of things, your agent should be doing the investigation for you and helping pull those covenant documents, sharing them with you for you to look at as well, but proactively making sure that the home you're buying actually fits the lifestyle that you're trying to lead. So, and moving forward with y'all's specific business, so how does somebody, do they create their own idea and then ask you guys, is this a good plan? Do you guys kind of have a sit down conversation with them? What does the process of working with you look like?
So, the best thing for you to do before you make any massive plans in your backyard, front
Mm-hmm.
yard, on your property whatsoever, is to go to our website and sign up for a consultation. Depending
Mm-hmm.
on where you are, the fee changes a little bit, but we'll spend an hour in your backyard discussing your goals with you, looking at the topography and existing infrastructure that you have, and then we can come up with a plan and design. And sometimes the builds go in steps to
Mm-hmm.
do the various things, but
Okay.
that's the best thing to do.
Right.
The worst thing that you can possibly do is decide, I really want chickens and a garden and a
Mm-hmm.
pool and all of these different things. And before talking to anybody that knows what it is they're talking about, you just go to some big box store,
Mm-hmm.
leave with, a half a dozen straight run chickens, and you don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Buy a flat pack coop and put it
Mm-hmm.
together, right? Which was designed to work perfectly in Connecticut, but will murder your birds here in North Carolina. And then try to do this entire thing on your own,
Yeah.
right? If you YouTube is great,
Mm-hmm.
it's not great for everything, and just because your particular homestead social media influencer has a fantastic accent and they're just so adorable on camera
Yeah.
doesn't mean that doing it in the Scotland Highlands is going to be the
Yeah.
same as doing it in North Carolina, right? So
Okay.
we've been successfully keeping birds for a very, very long time, and we will overshare on that
Mm-hmm.
hour. So you don't necessarily have to hire us to build you the coop. You can build it yourself, but you definitely can't buy a turnkey coop at a box store
Yeah.
and expect to be successful. You're going to have problems.
And one of the things that we try to do for people is to be very honest and be like, you can't do that here. You can't
Yeah.
put a garden here because you don't have any sun. You
Mm-hmm.
can't put birds here because it's wet and you will make your birds sick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you put your birds as far away from your house as possible, you're going to run into risks of, predators or just not seeing things. So what we try to do is hear their goals and then give them a plan of action to execute. And we can do design work for them. Sometimes if it's a really large garden, a lot of people have a hard time envisioning. We can do 3D rendering for them.
Oh, wow.
We can give on-site education before, during, and after
Mm-hmm.
the installation. And so we talk about, the zonings of your house as far as, closest, second, and third, and how to kind of just really make things work in a way that works for them. And so part of what we like to do is not ask people to become farmers. We like to give them the ability to start doing these things that fit into their lifestyle and are achievable for them. Because if we put in a garden and we say, okay, you're going to grow all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have time, they're going to quit and they're not going to be our lifelong, client.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you guys have a little bit of activists, a little bit of groundwork that you're really kind of setting up for your clients. So if I wanted to just tomorrow start working with chickens, is there a particular type of bird or chicken that is like the novice starting point? Like, is there, I know that people think chickens are all the exact same and they're actually are different variations.
So, there's a lot of different chicken breeds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, it depends on what your goals are. There are several chicken breeds that are very, very prolific layers,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not particularly friendly,
Okay.
right? And at the end of that chicken's productivity, when you call that chicken, there's not a whole lot of meat on them to do anything with,
Got
right?
it.
Which is something else that happens when people enter into chickens. They don't think about what that
The
end,
cycle of life
right, right?
here.
Like,
Yes.
A poster at Tractor Supply, they give you chicks,
Uh-huh.
feed, shavings, coop, and they don't say, what do you do in 4 years?
yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
We
So,
help with that too.
right.
Gotcha.
So some of this is just managing expectations,
Uh-huh.
right? So, like two of our favorite chicken breeds for beginners are Australorps and
Mm-hmm.
Orpingtons.
Okay.
Um, they're heritage breeds. They come in a few different colors, and they're friendly, right? They're
Okay.
also good layers, and they're also larger bodied birds. So when it
Okay.
And
comes
they're big
time to
and
call them,
fluffy, and people like that.
yeah.
Oh yeah. So
So
kid friendly.
yeah,
Super
Okay.
kid friendly.
right. Now there are other chickens out there that again really good egg layers,
Mm-hmm.
right? But just aren't nearly as much fun, right? Like
Yeah.
so, uh, Leghorns are pretty mean. And then
Rhode
Rhode
Island
Island
Reds
Reds,
are very
they're
ornery.
mean.
They
Okay.
get to be
They're just
ornery
yeah,
ladies.
they're just
Interesting. So they
not.
all have their own personality,
So we
essentially.
have two at
It's
home
yeah,
called Rhyme and Reason, and
Uh-huh.
there's really no rhyme or reason to their
Got it.
attitudes.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask maybe a dumb question, but do you have to have a rooster? No. Okay.
No. So roosters fertilize the eggs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now there's no difference in taste or texture or
Mm-hmm.
quality from an unfertilized egg to a fertilized egg. But you would want a rooster if you wanted to raise more chickens, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
eggs have to be fertilized in order to go from an egg to a chick after it's sitting underneath a mama hen for,
Yeah.
about a month.
Okay.
So you absolutely don't need a rooster. In fact, most of the HOAs and covenances that
Mm-hmm.
say you can have birds say you can have X number of birds, no roosters, which is one of the reasons why you should avoid straight run chicks when you
Mm-hmm.
purchase, because straight run means that they are unsexed.
Okay.
And what that really means is that 5 out of every 6 birds you're buying are male.
Interesting.
Well,
Okay.
the hatchery
The
has to
odds
do
are not in
something
your
with them.
favor.
Yeah, like the hatchery
Okay.
has to do something with them, right?
Uh-huh.
So, like I'm not saying that they're up to no good, but what I am saying is that they got to go somewhere, right?
Okay.
So if 4 or 5 crates of definitely male birds
Uh-huh.
happen to get salted in with the ones that we didn't check,
Yeah.
We
Interesting.
have adopted a lot of roosters on our farm
Mm-hmm.
to handle their end of life
Care. Okay.
circumstances.
yeah,
Poor guys. At least they have somewhere to go. So in
yeah, it's
addition,
called the crock pot.
yeah.
They become enchiladas.
Hey, again, going back to the circle of life, I know
Yeah.
people don't want to think about where your food comes from, but here we are. So I know, folks, chickens are kind of like the gateway, right?
hmm
As far as starting point, because I think that Chip and Joanna Gaines have kind of done us a blessing and a curse here, getting everybody in this mindset that they can have it. And some folks are definitely prepared, some not so much. Some with a little bit of research probably could handle it just fine. But we are seeing an uptick not just in chickens, but also in other animals. So, pigs, for example, or mini cows, or things like that. What kind of advice do you guys have for folks who are maybe kind of thinking of branching out into the next tier, if you will?
Hooves are a completely different ballgame. The
Okay.
second you get into hooves, it's
Mm-hmm.
different care, it's
Okay.
different time requirements. So your backyard chickens, if you do it right and you set it up
Mm-hmm.
correctly, take 10 minutes a day. That
Okay.
is food, water, collecting eggs, saying hi to
Yeah,
Henrietta,
checking on
Mm-hmm.
and
everybody.
checking
Yeah,
on everybody, throwing maybe some extra shavings in.
Okay.
Once a month, maybe you spend 30 minutes cleaning the coop, And that's it.
Okay.
You get into pigs, you have to move them every day. You have to keep them busy. They
Mm.
don't corral well. You might need
Okay.
to hot wire train them. You're going to need heavy duty fencing. They don't just go in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Same with cows. There really is no such thing as a mini animal, farm animal anyway.
Okay.
If you're going to get a mini one, it just means you might need a smaller stall, but
Mhm.
they're still going to create a lot of manure.
Hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there are
and
hundreds of pounds
Yeah.
of animal.
yes. So
Right? So
the gateway from chickens to cow really should be some kind of entry in between.
Mhm.
Maybe you want to get some meat rabbits, or you're going to start
Okay.
with going with turkeys, and then you just start kind of growing up. But most people don't have the space to satisfy a cow or pigs in their yard without doing it properly.
Interesting.
Again, we can come in and help with that, but we're
Yeah.
also going to really tell you right off the bat,
Mhm.
you have an acre. When you move out to 5 acres, then you can have a cow.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's something, guys, to kind of be cognizant of as far as acreage and how much it costs here. Another thing that we commonly have to debunk is the cost of land. Obviously, they're not building any more of it, so it's going to continue to uptick. And as we kind of grow as a population here, there's going to be less and less of that. So the price is going to continue to climb. So just be really cognizant of your budget when you're thinking, okay, I want to buy land for XYZ cost. Then adding your home and obviously the space that you're going to have to build for your animals on top of that. That price can go up pretty quickly. Doesn't mean it's not doable. Sometimes you have to kind of cut some corners in some different ways, but that's definitely a process I think on our end we've kind of had to flesh out a lot more in depth. I have quite a few folks that come to the Triangle thinking that for $250,000 they can get 10 acres, a couple of barns, and all the animals in the house with it, which unfortunately that's nowhere close to even like an average home price.
I was going
at
to
this
say I'll
point.
take 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Wouldn't we all? So, before we wrap up here, where can folks meet you? Because I do know that there's some farmers markets very close to where I live where you guys actually are regularly there, meeting people, kind of getting in front of them. So, where can folks find you to get more information?
So we're usually at the Wake Forest Farmers Market
Mhm.
on Saturdays. So we're currently doing our fall winter hours, which
Okay.
is 10 to noon.
Okay.
So you can come meet us there. But we're going to be at several different events coming up here. The
We're hosting a few events at our farm. We have
Okay.
open farm days. We have a Heal NC event coming up.
Nice.
We're hosting a concert
November
first
the
Friday in
3rd.
November.
Oh, wow.
And we're also going to be at the Sustainable Agriculture Conference in Durham coming up mid-November.
Fantastic. Well, guys, we will make sure that their contact info is in the bottom of this episode in the description. Should you have any questions or just want to connect and hear more about their story, I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate. Be sure to like, share, and follow this if there's somebody you know who's looking to move to North Carolina or perhaps start their own farm. We'll see you next time.